Probably the thing that's going to hopefully see me till the end of my career, where it was just the right place, the right environment, the right biome, everything was right. Okay, well, my name's Nic. Must I say Nic Bladen? I am a botanical sculptor. I'm not a sculptor in the sense of creating the shapes that I sculpt. I use plant matter. I use actual plant matter I turn that into bronze and silver, and I put those pieces back together as bronze sculpture. I'm a lucky artist. I live in Cape Town, Komiki, and about 25 years ago I figured out how to cast plant matter, how to turn plant matter into metal, and that happened through a process of how I grew up, what I grew up with, and also through what I studied. I studied dental technology, and so I learned to do very, very fine casting. Being in that career for a while, I then changed to that of a bronze foundryman. I did an apprenticeship in a bronze foundry, and through mixing the different casting techniques, I figured out how to do big castings, but to also cast very, very thin. And that's what my business is based upon, casting big surface areas, but doing it very thin, hence casting flowers and leaves, and that's what my business is based on. I've been making a living of it for approximately 20 years. I've got a studio, I employ 5 people, and also I think living in the Cape, and specifically working with plant matter, I happen to live in the richest botanical diversity region in the world, in the Fynbos biome. I've got, on my doorstep, I've got 6,000 plant species to work with. In South Africa, I've got 20,000 plant species to work with. So capturing these plants in metal through the process that I've sort of invented on my own, I've got many lifetimes worth of work. There's a dreamy process where I spend all my time in the mountains, but the process involves collecting plant matter, either from the wild with permission from landowners, or from nurseries or specialist nurserymen. And I collect plants, preferably interesting plants, and it goes through a process very similar to that of lost wax casting. Lost wax casting is a process where you make a mold of a wax object that you've carved, and that mold then gets placed in an oven. The oven heats, and the mold burns away and melts away and leaves a cavity in the shape of whatever wax you put in there. But I do exactly the same with plant matter. I make molds of plant matter, but I burn it at much higher temperatures. Plant matter burns away, and I shoot metal into that cavity. I then remove the molding substrate, which is like plaster of Paris, to reveal the casting. There I've got a duplicate, or a replica at least, of the plant that I chose to put into that mold. Bigger plants get cut up into many, many, many parts, sometimes up to 200 parts for a plant. Those 200 parts get cast individually, and everything gets put back together again as the plant was, or as close to as the plant that I received. There's always trial and error in this process. Because it's precision casting, I work at very high temperatures. I work with very, very thin sheets of metal. So I still have a success rate and a failure rate with the casting. So at times 100% of the castings work every time for weeks in a row, nothing goes wrong, and then one day comes where everything goes wrong, and there's no rhyme or reason. So we're always humble, we always sort of expect the worst to happen, and if anything good happens, then we're happy. but it's always a learning process. We can never get too confident. In sort of learning, in the learning process, I've figured out what we cannot do, and I strive to work within that to push our boundaries. But there is a point where I can cut off and I can say, okay, instead of 6,000 species, I've got 580 species I can work, or 5,800 species I can work with. My customers are people who are interested in plants, or who are interested in sculpture or jewellery. They're mainly, I think, people who recognize that, you know, within sculpture, if I were a real sculptor and I worked with clay, you know, I'm going to develop a style which might only intrigue somebody who really loves my work as a clay sculptor who brings that work into bronze. But I think with casting plants and making molds of plants and castings of plants, I think the customer is somebody who recognizes the plant for what it is, and recognizes the shape, and recognizes the geometry and the uniqueness and probably the mathematics in proportions, because that's something I don't mess around with. That the plant just speaks for itself, and I'm pretty lucky as a you know, sculptor that this is my medium that I work with. The plants speak for themselves, and I'm sort of a middle person, or you could say like a 3D photographer. So the client sees plants. I think they might be averse to sculpture, but they might enjoy plants more. When I studied dental technology, we always had like very small amounts of material to play with. And I always made sure I had a bit extra, because I could go and pick a flower from a tree and cast that and, you know, give it as a gift to a new girlfriend or something. 10 years in to casting flowers, I had a box of flowers. I didn't know what to do with them. I knew they had to turn into jewelry. And everything again fell into place where I lived in the right street. There was a goldsmith who was my age living down the road from me, who taught me how to make wire, how to make earring fittings and necklaces. And so it started off as a career making jewelry, and until the day where I cast my first plant, where I call it rescued a plant from a mountain biking track. Now, I took that plant and I made molds of it, and only the day when I soldered all the different parts together did I realize that I'd struck probably the thing that's going to hopefully you know, see me till the end of my career, where you know, it was just the right place, the right environment, the right biome, everything was right. I'd say my favorite, for me, the most valuable piece is possibly this one. It's called a Liparia parva, and it's specifically mounted on this base like this because they do grow down. You see them you see them with these drooping flowers, and the flowers droop low for mice to pollinate it. But the other thing that makes it special for me is the delicateness. You know, the flowers are heavy, the stems are super thin, and in terms of metal, that almost doesn't make sense. In the plant it probably makes sense, but in terms of the metal, the thinness of the metal shouldn't be able to carry the weight of the silver, but yet it does. Well, what I find interesting and why I love this piece, and it's not for sale by the way, the fiber of the plant that carries the weight of the fruit or the heavy flower that it carries translates through to the metal. It proves I think the relationship between what I do with nature and with metal. Ambrose is busy filing down a piece of silver wire. This is to become an attachment for a set of earrings. We've been doing a lot of silver castings with quite big voluptuous flowers, and what Ambrose is doing is putting on the earring hook attachments. We've got an order that's going out on Friday to New York. We don't do a lot of jewelry here. This is going straight to a catwalk. Nic Bladen goes home. He enjoys trail running. I enjoy surfing. I enjoy windsurfing. I enjoy hanging with my children, taking the dogs for walks or runs, or take the dog windsurfing with us. But yeah, mainly, I mean, we live in Komiki for a reason. It's in the mountains, it's next to the sea. Enjoy spending time in the desert. Desert more than lush forest. It's difficult running a business. If I do due diligence with business, things flow, then it's okay. But it's part of being grown up, I guess, or part of owning a business, and part of having staff, and doing all the right things. It hurts. It hurts, but it's cool. I have to see it as a business. It's not frolicking around in the mountains and doing metalwork and making jewelry and and just being happy all the time. It's business. It's cool. It's difficult, but it's worthwhile.